The 2025 New Zealand Cross Country Nationals saw one of the best title fights the series has ever seen. It was between reigning champion Callum Dudson aboard his Honda CRF450R and Brad Groombridge, a past 3 times champion, on his Kawasaki KX450. The three of us sat down for a discussion about how it all shook out, and this is what they had to say. Sit back, relax, and if you're from New Zealand or Australia, comment below about how cold this corner is. The chilliest comment will win a Leat Core hoodie to warm things back up. Make sure to include your Instagram handle, otherwise, enjoy. My first question, I guess, is just like, I suppose Callum, you first, right? I'm guessing being the reigning national champion, your main focus of this year was this National Cross Country Championship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was the goal.
You've been going up and up and up, and you're at like this fucking real high level, like going into the cross country nats, right? Like it was pretty good, pretty strong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, it's probably some of my best racing, to be fair. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And then Brad, like you were signed for sort of motocross only with Cowie, right? So am I right in saying that like you weren't even probably sure that you were going to do the whole series going into it?
Motocross was more the focus, and then just because of where the first 2 rounds were, my auntie lives in Fielding, so I had a place to stay, and I was, I guess I was able to have work's busy, but I was able to have the Friday off, and kind of make that 2 day thing work, and I didn't even have a bike actually. I had to ask Kawasaki to see if they had a 450 that I could ride, and they didn't have a demo bike or anything, but they put a demo bike on for me to ride. I had a tank that I knew that would fit, so I had like all the bits there. I just needed the bike and be able to work it around work, and I was like, I'll go and do the first 2 rounds, see how I go, and then if that all goes well, then go down south. It was still a little bit of last minute to get everything organised to go down south, but we made it. Yeah, we made it work.
And coming into the first round, Callum, you obviously came out swinging. That was a pretty good race for you, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It was pretty good. It was just like I got some good clean laps in early, and then yeah, just managed to just not do anything dumb, really. Yeah.
I'm guessing like that was fully your expectation going in. You weren't surprised.
Nah, not hugely. I thought Brad was going to get there earlier, but I don't know what happened to him off the start. Yeah.
Yeah, you got not a great start in the first one, eh, Brad?
Oh no, I actually got it all right start, but I crashed like 2 turns in,
Oh,
and then I had a few more crashes on the first lap, and I think I lost the majority of the time to Callum on like on those those early laps, and I wasn't able to, I guess, I think maybe it was a couple of minutes, was it, Callum, or something, and
Fuck all.
just
Yeah. It's just
yeah, so
it was
trying to make
a start.
trying to make that back up wasn't easy, and I was fighting the bike at that first round. And I think it was a little bit the setup. I didn't have the geometry quite right, and that's where. So I actually changed it in between the first round and the second round, and then at the second round my bike was heaps better. I just had the front end was real vague. I didn't have real good feel in the front end, so I lost the front a few times at the first round, but I was still, second was still a good result at the end of it, and I was in one piece probably at a few moments, but we all generally have a few moments.
so what did you go softer, harder?
I think I dropped the forks through the clamp a little bit more,
Yeah.
so took them up towards the handlebars, and I took a bit of sag out of the back of it just to put a bit more weight on the front to have a bit more front end grip. It probably had its pros and cons, like going at the second round when you've got the big downhills with the braking bumps. It definitely was a bit more like lively, like trying to stay back on the bike, but it gave me that front end, like that steering, kind of that feel in the front that I was looking for at the first time, which I didn't have.
Yeah, so so going into round two, you had a lot more comfort on the bike, but then also, yeah, I'm guessing you had a way better first lap.
I can't remember now. Was I leading for a bit, and then we were kind of riding together, or were you?
We,
So we were
I think,
quite close from the start. I remember.
yeah, I think because I got the whole shot, and then you you jumped on me straight away. I think was
Yeah,
from, and we rode together for
quite
maybe
a lot of the race.
two
Like we were
hours.
together. Yeah, I think at least to the 2 hour mark
Yeah,
from
Uh,
memory.
and then were you able to build a gap eventually, Brad, at that one?
Yeah, I just had a good pace going, and I think at one point I did. Whether did you just dropped off a bit, Callum? And I sort of
yeah,
we just
yeah,
stayed that same distance.
pretty much. Yeah, I had a crash and then just used all my energy getting back up, and then just fucking run out of steam big time.
Actually, I think yeah, that was when you lost the front on that off-camber
Yeah,
grassy corner, eh? And that's
yeah,
when I passed you, and I sort of
yeah.
pushed a bit to try and build a gap, and you had to fight. You got back to me actually.
Yeah, yeah. But then I was just cooked after that. Yeah,
Yeah, and so that
yeah.
kind of like you used up all your energy getting back to the back of me, and then after that, I don't know, we
Fucked
just
off.
wrote, we sort of just fell into a pace, and
Mm.
from there, but no, we weren't really racing anyone else, just ourselves, really.
Yeah, yeah, you guys have been checking out. So that was a win for you. So all of a sudden you guys are a win apiece and a second apiece, so tied for the points lead. Were you, I guess, Callum, you were probably a bit pissed off to let that one slip after having won the first one, and those races were on the same weekend, they're only 2 days apart. So I imagine you were pretty confident going into it and were you annoyed with yourself?
Oh, not really, because like I don't know. I did expect Brad to get there. Like, you know what I mean? As soon as we did the first lap and he stayed with me the first lap, then I knew it was going to be on right through to the end. So just running out of steam is not really like it is what it is. You know what I mean? And it's one each now. At that point, it was one each. So it's no
Mm.
different to the last year when I raced. Yeah, it's still not bad, not good.
Nah, good position, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it
Yeah.
was quite a big gap between the races. And then the last two were also going to be way down the bottom of South Island, the end of the world. And
mm,
they were going to be, yeah, again, just 2 days apart. And so you were going down there, and I guess you just had to bring your A game, because if you were to have a bad one in the first one, it would probably carry over to the second one, sort of thing, right?
yeah,
Um, but I spoke to you, Callum, and you said, I'm feeling pretty confident about this.
yeah, yeah. No, I was. Yeah, I had like good race at the 6 hour. Had a good day at the sprint. Um, the bike felt good, so I was pretty happy with where we're at. Yeah,
Yeah, so you were racing a bunch of cross country and enduros in between those two, and it's like I said, you're as fast as I've ever seen you this year. It's just been unbelievable. Meanwhile, Brad, you've been out fucking showing everybody that you still remember how to race motocross over in the nationals, eh?
Yeah, it's quite like it's different, and it was sort of fun. I ummed and ahed about going to the 6 hour actually, and but if I was going, I would have been going to ride it solo. I wouldn't have done it as a team. But I think I actually went hunting that weekend, just as a weekend off because the motocross has been like bam, 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 and obviously like Callum had done the sprint, so he'd done a bit of like maybe a little bit more, would you say longer, like those longer races.
yeah,
And then meanwhile I was battling away at motocross, but maybe it not as long, but the intensity is a little bit higher. So I I guess yeah, I don't really know how it was gonna end up. I knew there would be a battle. It was just like how was it all gonna play out because there's so many variables that come into it in terms of bike setup, tires, start. Like obviously the start's a massive thing, fueling, all that sort of thing. And I think probably some of that maybe I think you were getting an hour and a half to a fuel stop before you
mm,
fueled, Callum, and
yeah,
I was fueling like a lap earlier, but
yeah,
then our races were going. where you were going to have to do a second fill anyway. So it just
Yeah.
kind of fell, it ended up falling. I could have gone that hour and a half, but I was probably playing it on the safe side.
Mm.
And because I hadn't done a lot of fuel, I guess, testing with that bike to see what I was going to get out of it. So being a little bit cautious of that and making sure by going early first off and then knowing that we could go a bit further the next time, but still ended up that we both had to fuel twice because of that extra lap at the end. So yeah, it'll win. Yeah, it's interesting how it all worked out. I went early and then thought, well, if I go early and he's got to go the lap after, if I push that lap and try and gain some time back, then he's got to then pit, and I'm hopefully going to be right behind you. But in theory, you knew you had to push that lap too. So
Yeah.
I still had a gap at the end of that lap when you'd fueled. So it was like I had to then go another lap to try and get back. But it's interesting how it all, like, just different strategy, and you kind of, I guess you never know where, you don't really tell anyone too much about how long you can go on fuel or this or that. So there's always those different variables that come into it.
Yeah,
But
reminds me of Formula One, overcutting and undercutting.
yeah, oh no, Formula One's boring, mate. What are you talking about? It's way more exciting.
It's what you're describing, undercutting basically, or overcutting,
Yeah.
where you go early
Mm.
and then push that lap, leapfrog them when they pit.
Yeah, but you'd never know. Like, sometimes you can make a mistake pushing, and then sometimes the guy leading can make a mistake, and then you catch him, and then you can be right with them, even get in front of them sometimes on that lap. In some situations, I mean, it depends on how comfortable you're feeling with the track and how willing to push that limit you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys don't have 300 staff in the garage trying to run AI simulations and figure it all out like they do in an F1 team.
Nah, exactly. You're just, and you once you get out there, what you've got's what you've got. So you you're stuck with that for 3 hours, pretty much.
Yeah, and so fast forwarding coming into this round, like I said, way down the bottom of the South Island, we've traveled for presumably 2 days worth of travel each to get everything down there, and just a massive headache. We arrive right, and the first bit of update I see of what's going on there, Callum, you fucking knock your bike over on the start line.
Oh, Callum's bike fell over. Fuck.
That was a fuck up, eh? Yeah, pretty much. I don't know, just clipped my foot climbing onto it, and just the bike just toppled over, eh? There's nothing I could do. Yeah,
Just sort of hooked your boot buckle on the back mudguard or something like that.
I don't even know. All I know is I just went to grab it, and then all of a sudden it was tipping over on me. Yeah, but I mean, I was pretty lucky. Like, we had two like decent paddocks and off the start,
Yeah.
and then we went into a gnarly uphill, and then across, and then down a gnarly downhill, and I think I managed to get maybe up to seventh, maybe by
Oh,
the
You got
time.
up quite. You ended up there quite quickly. Like, and I
Yeah,
think that the numbers were a bit lower on the
yeah,
Thursday too. That, like, the entries were down, being that it was a Thursday and locals having time off. So you were, within
I
probably
think,
quarter of the lap, you were already at the front with us.
yeah,
Like, I think you actually ended up going to the lead.
yeah. I think I got to the lead by about halfway
You,
around. Yeah,
yeah, you were leading, and Bailey. I was stuck behind Bailey for a bit actually, and then I saw you getting away, and I was like, oh, I better rein that in.
yeah.
So
That's what I was
that,
thinking. I thought you guys were mucking around a bit at the start, and I thought either these fellas aren't comfortable at all, or they're
yeah.
just waiting to see what happens. So I thought, nah, fuck it. I'll carry on while I got a good bit of momentum going, and then
Mm.
see what you guys decide to do.
Sometimes when you're coming from the back at the start too, like, you're a bit more racy, so you're in that kind of zone,
Hmm.
and you've already got a good feel for what you've got underneath you, bike wise and with
Hmm.
grip. and so you kind of just go, well, I feel good, I'll just keep going that pace.
For
And
sure.
I guess with that, like me and Bailey being at the front, I was still a little bit like trying to figure out what the terrain was like, because you're there, so you're not pushing that pace so much.
Mm.
And so it was just like, yeah, and then by quarter half lap, you were already with us, and it was like, oh, well, just settle into a pace and then go from there. And then you kind of took off, and
Mm.
there was a point that I went, wow, I got to go, because if I don't, you were just slowly pulling
Yeah.
gap out, gap out, gap out, and then, but then you end up riding on the edge a little bit too, like, because you're still
Yeah.
not fully comfortable with what you got. So you're like going, I got to try and push it, but not overdo it,
Yeah.
because then I'll come a cropper.
Mm.
Do you think in hindsight, Callum, that you, like just looking back on that race, do you think you maybe used too much energy in the first lap?
For sure. Yeah. Not so much the first lap. Probably I didn't use a whole lot of energy on that first lap. I wasn't going hard, but I was still probably going a little bit too hard in the first hour and a half. Yeah. When Brad decided to come with me through the front, I think I tried to see if I could do a couple good laps early. Not crazy good, but just a couple quite good ones. And I think that, the first lap, second lap, third lap, I think those are what used my energy.
Yeah.
When Brad fell into his pace later on, it was just, I was already a little bit spent. And then he had a little bit extra pace. And then I'm trying to go a little bit faster. And I'm using more energy. And then he started to walk away. And then I was just like, nah, I might as well save this for tomorrow.
Yeah, well, yeah, a day later, because it didn't come down to that. And it was a funny one, eh? Like trying to
It's never going to
figure out.
matter, that one. Yeah.
That's
Because,
right. It sort of like didn't really matter whether you won or not, because
yeah.
it all come down to the last one anyway.
Yeah.
And that was running through my mind too. I was going,
We didn't call it.
am I,
Like,
yeah, like you don't want to go too hard. Like there's no point trying to win by some ridiculous amount of time,
yeah.
because you're still going to need some go, in a day's time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were both gun shy, like you both had in mind that it was going to be winner takes all, no matter which order you finished in that third round. Because
Yeah.
even though Brad would have had more wins than you going into that last round, the tiebreak would have gone to you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So at the last round, though, if it's tie break, whoever wins the last round wins. So
Yeah.
takes
Right.
like overrides it. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a real interesting point. So I guess. Yeah, I guess you still would have been gutted that you couldn't have won it, but like I bet you're also thinking like, right, well, I'm in the same position I would have been in anyway.
Yeah. Like it was like the options probably that were going through my head were I can chase him down and I might get him, I might not. But either way, if I use all my energy or if I get big blisters in my hands from pushing the last hour, it doesn't matter because Saturday's going to come round and I could still get second in that and then lose it. So like
Yeah.
second or first second,
Yeah,
still a loss.
that's a
Yeah,
real interesting one because you guys would never normally have to deal with that situation of thinking about we're going to race again in 2 days' time.
yeah, yeah,
No, well, even racing for the last one for it to be the tie break, because it's normally the best of three, which
yeah,
that's where having the four is a little bit weird, because normally you're the best three out of four, not all 4 rounds count like it has been previous years. What did they do last year, Callum? Was it
Be-
all
be-
four or
no, it was still best out of three, but
yeah,
me and Will still went.
1-2, 1-2, one
Yeah,
the
so
whole way?
it still went to the
Yeah.
end anyway.
Yes,
Yeah,
still went to the last one, yeah.
it's
So it still
same,
can work out that way, yeah.
but
But it's
one of us could have had a DNF or something like that, and it
Yeah.
still would have been that way. Whereas
I
this
quite
time,
like the best of three setup, because like especially with like a round down south where you've only got a day in between, if you have you only got one bike, eh?
yeah, I only got the one bike for
Yeah,
the
so
whole
if you
year.
if you go down there and have a failure on the third, let's say it's the last 2 rounds, you have a failure on the Thursday,
Hmm.
it gives you a day to try and find some parts or a bike or
Yeah,
borrow a bike
Yeah.
or whatever to then still race that last round and maybe still win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I prefer the best of four, like best three of four. But
Mm.
yeah, it's an interesting
Because
one.
it's a short series, eh? It's actually
Yeah,
2 weeks of riding.
yeah. It's like nothing in it, but it's like for one DNF pretty much that if you're counting all four, one DNF ruins your whole series. So if that
Mm.
happens at the first one, it's almost like just about pointless going to the other three because
Mhm. Yeah,
you've
you're
got
done.
no chance of winning.
Mm.
Um,
So let's talk about that last one. So we go into it, and it was like it was like everything was just lining up for this to be a great duel because Callum, after you knocked your bike over in the third round, now Brad gets a shit start in the last round, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But he sort of understood the magnitude too, because
Mm.
he didn't fuck around getting back up the front either. It took him
uh,
half a lap.
I think I was 20 something coming. My bike just didn't fire first pop, and then it didn't fire second pop, and then got it going on the third one. I probably got a little bit lucky to still end up. I think as we came up the hill, I think I was like maybe 27th, something like that. The old man reckons, and same sort of thing. Couple open sections at the start, or open corners in the first paddock, and then there was still some open stuff heading out onto the trail. So I think by the time we left the pit paddock, I think I was up to ninth, and then a couple big straights, open flowing turns. It wasn't long really till I was sort of up there. But then I also think that you probably didn't push as hard on that early lap either.
I
Like I
did
felt
the
you
first
did.
half. I did.
Oh,
I did a. I didn't do a super fast one, but the first half lap when I went up, you go through the creek and up the hill.
yeah,
I
yeah,
had a look back and I couldn't see you. So I was
yeah,
like, yeah, I'll go a bit hard. I won't go crazy and crash, but I was like,
yeah.
I'll try.
Push.
And I did, and I'd keep looking back, see where you're at. And I saw
Yeah.
you starting to come through. And then I was like, okay,
Uh,
nah, I'm just gonna wait this one out. And
yeah. I didn't think because I was like, you're always looking, and I knew you were leading because I could see at the start you were leading, and I was like, oh, yeah, sweet, there he is. I'll just, as long as I maintain, don't let that gap grow. But I kind of thought you were going to put the afterburners on and try and really like pull that lead out while I still had a bit of traffic to
yeah,
get through. But you kind of, yeah, you didn't. You had a bit, but not much. Like, yeah, it wasn't. So I thought you were going to just try and pull and disappear. And then it would have been real hard because I think it's always easier to chase someone down when you can see them.
yeah.
Like it's always that little bit more like, they're only just there. I'll just hold it on that little bit more in that spot, a little bit more. I think, did I get to the back of you by the end of the first lap?
Yeah, quite easily.
I
Yeah,
passed you down that sketchy hill and I
yeah,
probably nearly crashed because my back end was out of the rut, like
yeah,
sliding down into that single chute part,
yeah.
which was probably a little bit over. I didn't probably really need to push it that much, but
But it
it
was
was
the
fun.
same thing like me at the third round. You had the flow coming through,
Yeah.
caught it and wanted to carry it on. Yeah,
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 and that's I think that's because you're getting that like you're racing people passing and you get a good flow and so you feel comfortable so you just kind of keep wanting to go that speed because it's like, well, I've been doing that the whole lap, I might as well feel good, just carry on at that pace.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then I think,
So, oh, sorry, Callum. It's like a total invert of the round three, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah, almost a flip the script pretty much.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we get out of that first lap, and what was the situation between you guys when you come back past the pits at the end of this first lap?
For me, it was. I think it was for Brad too. It was very cruisy. We were being very,
Yeah,
very tame. Yeah,
not pushing the pace too much. I think
at
we
all.
knew that it was a long race, and it was going to be from halfway onwards is where it was going to be like that's where it's going to make or break like what's going to happen. I just sat behind you till
Yeah,
like halfway or 2 hours or
the pit mark when we pitted, first pit.
Yeah, first, so that would have been end of lap three. I pitted, so I just sat behind you, getting filled in, going up the hills. I ended up dropping back because some of the uphills, the dust was pretty bad, and then yeah, same thing. Went to that early pit strategy, tried to chase you down on the out lap,
Mm-hmm.
didn't gain anything. You came out of the pit still with I think it was like a 30 something second lead,
Mm.
and then I think it took me 2 laps maybe to close that back up.
At the first pit, we were about halfway.
Oh,
I
you would have
think.
been halfway because you pitted into lap four.
Yeah,
So that would
yeah.
have been about an hour and a yeah, hour 20, hour and a half
I
maybe.
think it was a little bit
Something.
longer. I think I was about hour 35, and then our next pit
Yeah.
was I went one early, and I went one early compared to the first lot.
And I went
You
one
went one
late.
late, so we're
Yeah.
together again.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I was able to short fill
Yeah,
because I didn't need to fill for a whole 3 or 4 laps. I only needed to fill for 2 laps, whereas I think you needed to fill for an extra lap or
yeah.
maybe two.
Hmm.
So then it's funny, how it switches.
Yeah,
It's all just time and just timing. You would have had the race been a lap shorter, you wouldn't have had to fill again. I don't think. Is that right?
probably
Yeah.
not. Yeah, I think
Nah.
the
Yeah.
lap shorter. Yeah,
Because you went 4 laps in fuel and then 3 laps in fuel. But if you'd have only had to do another, because we ended up doing 9 laps, I think. So
yeah,
if you had to only do 8 laps, you would have
yeah,
filled once, and that would have been you to the end, and that
yeah.
would have been the difference, basically.
Yeah.
It, I would have probably not made that, been able to gain that time, that fuel stop time back, maybe.
Watching the updates is obviously really hard to tell because we're only getting little phone videos that Paul was taking, but God, it looked like it was just so epic. Every clip he took, you got a different one of yous was leading, and so one time Callum's on his own, and then you guys are right behind each other, and then Brad's in front, and then the rain starts coming down. What were you guys thinking when that was happening?
Fuck, it was slippery.
Yeah, it was. I was like, this is either gonna we're gonna get to the end, or this is gonna go real pear shaped, because it was like
Yeah.
the last lap, and Callum had a front row seat pretty much, but I had a few good moments where I
Yeah.
probably should have been on the deck and somehow managed managed to pull it off and save it. But I had a little bit of a gap actually going out onto the last lap, but then the first mistake I made, you caught basically right onto the back of me again. I
Yeah.
got out of shape in a sheep rut on an off cambered side of a hill, and I was trying to get back up to the main line, and then it stepped out. I just had to be real gentle on the throttle, but I still nearly crashed.
Mm.
And then basically by the time I'd putted along and got back to the race line, you were only just behind me. The
Mm.
next hill, it was like, oh, you're right there. And
Mm.
it was basically like that for most of the last lap, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Pretty much till those uphills, eh?
Yeah, and then you just got the dust really, eh?
Yeah. Just got
The
covered in shit. Yeah.
these uphills went for so long, were so chopped out, like there's no way to you could take a different line, but you couldn't see what was in front of you.
Mm.
So it was like you just had to sit back and then try and gain the time after that in the open stuff. But it's
Yeah.
almost that was quite close to the finish by then. So
Yeah.
maybe like, would it have been 10 minutes, you reckon, from not even that, maybe, to the
The
finish from that first big uphill with
Probably, yeah, probably
yeah,
halfway. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe halfway. Yeah, it wasn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
there's
like,
another
and
one after that too. So
yeah, so you got two sort of quite close to each other, and then the rest of the track in between was sort of fairly straight. There was nothing too crazy that could. I guess if you overdid it, you could trip yourself up. But
mm,
if you just stuck on the main line and were consistent, it was hard to make time in those other sections. Probably
mm,
like they were the downhills with the bumps, and you
pretty
couldn't.
good today.
Nah, there wasn't. It wasn't that sort of terrain where you could really try and like
Mm,
close that gap up.
Yeah, so
Um,
obviously at that point, Callum, you would have been going like as hard as you can, right? You're in second place, so your only goal is to get ahead. Brad,
Yeah.
were you on that last lap pretty much riding at your limit?
Yeah, I was on the edge for the conditions with the water, like with the rain. It wasn't even heaps of rain, but man, did it make the track like it just
That
changed
hard
it
bottom,
from
eh?
yeah, it was like a hard base, and it was like they just siliconed it. It just went like if you got off the main ridden line into like the fresh grass, it was almost like the grass had been waxed.
Oh my
Like
God.
it was that slippery.
That's the
It
worst
was
condition when it's patchy too, hard to read.
it was real hard to read, and like I nearly had a couple good ones because of it. Like that, it just caught me out. You're just real unsure of what you've got. Much the same as doing, I guess, like doing a first lap. You just don't know. You're trying to get a feel for what you've got underneath you, bike wise and grip wise, and yeah, you just didn't know. I actually just washed my bike tonight, and like my rear tire's got three knobs missing off it and down the middle of the tire. I don't know. Have you looked at yours, Cam?
Yeah, I got a couple, not missing, but they're chunked off. Yeah,
Yeah,
way better than it should be.
mine are just like torn. I got three just cleaned off, and
Mm.
it's like so that would have been just. I didn't lose any knobs on the first day though. So
Oh, yeah. I
whether the track got harder or the
think
rocks,
the rocks
maybe the
came up.
rocks, yeah, the
Yeah,
rocks coming up, maybe.
yeah.
It's even hard to know whether you got it on acceleration or on the braking, like down some of those big hills because they were quite rocky.
I think it was going up those two new hills because the hills on the first day you were going so slow up them.
Yeah, like first gear trying to race each other up through these up hills with whoops.
The second day was they were proper tapped up the hills like
Yeah. I
fourth
think
gear.
you're
Mm.
probably right. Just being wide open, going up the hills and the wheel, like getting that wheel spin.
Yeah,
And there was that second one, there was the dark patch at the top that
yeah.
was like all rock, and you just got to it and just went into wheel spin.
Mm.
So you mentioned, Brad, that the area you were finally able to break out, get a little bit of a gap was this hill near the end. But when I see the footage of you guys coming across the line, Callum, you'd come right back onto his back wheel. What was
Mm.
that last couple of kilometers like?
So he sort of same thing. Brad went up the hill and it was dusty, it was hard to see, but Brad hit the slippery spot at the top too.
Mm.
It was dusty, and I thought I was catching, and then I just hit the same slippery spot and had nothing to do. And then we go up, and then Brad hit the gate at the top, and then that half opened, and so I hit the gate too,
What?
and then
Why are you hitting the gate? Did it close?
I couldn't stop. So you come up this hill and then it turned right onto a farm track. But as I
Yep.
come up there, because of the rain, I didn't. I went to stop and it just like I just couldn't get stopped. It just slid and I just slammed this gate and it must have partly shut it. And
yeah,
so Callum come up, got the same gate.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
That's gnarly.
that
yeah,
whole last sort of paddock up that hill, Callum, it was like a little bit unknowing to what you had, like
yeah,
grip wise, eh? And
yeah,
because it was like that grassy
yeah.
with the rough sort of like chunks of dirt and grass around, it was sort of like a little bit of an unknown
Mm.
with the water.
I think you probably been a little bit more cautious too, eh? Already being in the lead, you probably been more on the side of don't crash than
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I
that's
think for
why.
sure that's
Yeah,
probably what allowed you to come back to the
yeah.
back was yeah. I think you're probably right. Just trying to manage
Especially on those
those.
last two paddocks, eh? Because
Yeah,
that's what I did all my time on you was those final two paddocks. You still had a decent
with the
gap.
flat corners and
Yeah, yeah,
I was because I was like, if I try and go too silly here, I'm probably going to spin out.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I was like just cruising around the turns, making sure the bike wasn't like out. I was just trying to like really actually ride the turns, no speedway
yeah.
like power slides. It was just like bop, bop,
Mm.
bop around the corners
See, I
because
was,
it could. Yeah, you were full gas.
I was, I was at one shot. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that's
Had no
right. Yeah,
room. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I think I made. I think I probably did over. Oh, I don't know how many seconds, but I felt like when we're in that big paddock, when we go into the first one, you turn through the
Yeah.
gate and go left. I
Yep.
felt like you were already at the other end when I was coming down the
Yeah.
paddock.
So I had like that straight.
Yeah, it's probably a couple hundred meters, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah, be
and
something
then
like. But
and
between
then
100 and 200, eh?
yeah, and then just went for it because it was the last shot, and then managed to get in, but still too late, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I,
so in the end, the margin, the deciding margin, 5 meters.
fucking nothing.
yeah,
Yeah, one
Yeah.
second.
I just knew I had to have a little bit of gap going into the shoot so that you couldn't cook it going, otherwise you might have cooked it going in and
yeah,
gone straight in there.
yeah,
So I was like, as long as I just got a little bit that I can just roll it in,
yeah,
then I'm sweet. And
yeah.
so that's, yeah,
Yeah,
I could,
imagine that. Like, imagine Callum goes back. We certainly wouldn't be having this video call, I don't think.
oh, racing's racing at the end of the day. I've given out my fair share of shit in the past. But,
But
oh,
just
yeah,
imagine though, like if at the end, that was our finish line,
yeah.
and like those poor bystanders, man, because I know you wouldn't have
Oh,
been off.
nah, exactly. It would have been full. And that's the thing, eh? You go in there and you're like, man, if there was to be like a full on into the finish, it's like people are getting clean,
Yeah,
like 100%. I actually did that one day. I passed, they had a race out Rangatike on the way to Napier. And I think it was just a Hooker Honda 3 hour, and I passed Chris Power. I tried to pass Chris Power right at the finish line, and I fully cleaned him out and cleaned out the timing. Like there's, yeah, fuck, it was big. And he wasn't happy at me about it, but it was like that same thing. Like you race to the flag, you don't finish before the
Yeah,
flag. You
yeah.
finish at the flag. I can't
Mm.
remember whether I actually ended up winning that in the end, long time ago now, but yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, in the
I,
end though, Brad, congratulations, man. For the first time in how many years, you're now the national
oh,
cross country
it's
champion.
been a while. Maybe like 2018 might have been the last time. It's been a
Yeah.
while. Yeah, there's been a few injuries and ups and downs and bits in between, but it's nice to, I guess, get back there, but not do it like easily either. Like actually have to fight for it as well. And no, like me and Callum have had some good battles, and we finish and we have a good yarn, and then well on Saturday night we had some beers. So
That was my
yeah.
next question was going to be, is that about as hard as you've ever been pushed for this title?
I think it's probably as close as it's ever been for this title. Yeah, like in terms of like coming right down to the wire and having someone really fight you like that close right to the end. I'd say yeah, for sure. I think yeah. So like 2018 would have been, I think, what was it, 20, yeah, 16, 17, 18, I think was the 3 years that I'd previously won it. So, and those ones, I think I'd all but won it. Yeah, obviously, you got to drop around, but I think I'd all but won it pretty much before the last round, just about.
Callum, like I'm sure you're disappointed not to be able to defend, your national title, but man, you got to be proud of that effort, surely.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I was sort of, I would have been pretty fucking gutted if he just walked away on me on the last one. Yeah, yeah, I would have been pretty pissed off, I'd say. So, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, you can only do what you can do, really. Mm.
He's got 10 years on, I got 10 years on him, Ash, so he's got plenty of time to,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll be entered in the vets class and all in next year maybe. Do they do 35 at cross country for vets? 35,
Yeah, they do.
35 at motocross, I think. But
I think they do.
nah, I don't. Yeah, it's been good fun, and we've had good laughs and good yarns, and so it's been a pretty good year, I think, for everyone, and good battles, and everyone's enjoyed watching the battles too.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's been everyone's comment, being able to watch it. Like, I don't know, normally in the cross country, you don't really see a battle, if you know what I mean.
Nah, not a
Like,
lot of close racing for like people to actually watch throughout the day. Everyone gets spread out, and I think like with Bailey, he was basically by himself at every round, riding around in third.
yeah,
Um, maybe he needs a 450 next year. Whether that would help, I mean, it's nice to have the power, but sometimes it's not nice to hold on to it either. So
fucking pretty hard sometimes.
Yeah,
It's just been wicked though. Like it's like I commented on that post and I stand by it. I think it's probably the best title fight I can remember seeing in this series and the one that I watched with bated breath the most. But just before we close out, I wanted to just get your guys' thoughts on the fact that we would be able to relive every second of this last race if it weren't for this stupid rule where we can't run GoPros at MNZ events.
Yeah, pretty fucking stupid, right? Yeah, especially a chin mounted one. Like, I don't think there's any structural. Yeah, there wouldn't be fuck all structural damage on a chin piece. Yeah.
that's just gonna, in my opinion, it's gonna break off from there. It's not like having it on your top of your head. Like it's no different to if you land and hit the front of your helmet.
Mm.
That they're still gonna go up or down, but that's, I mean, you're gonna rip it off. It's not on there. It's on there with some Velcro, generally, maybe a little bit of tape, but it's just gonna it's gonna fly off. I'm glad you asked that question actually, Ash, because I was gonna bring that up. The sport's shrinking currently in its current form, and there's probably a few things as reasons as to why, in my opinion. And I did get up and say at the prize giving, sort of voice my opinion a little bit. But how cool would it be able to have GoPros and to be able to, I guess, for us as riders to be able to promote ourselves as I guess as a brand to sponsors, potential sponsors, but not just that, also to promote the sport, our sport, and try and draw people into our sport by watching those videos. They can see the terrain and like what we're riding on, and maybe that encourages them to be like, oh, I'm going to go and have a go at that because that terrain looks epic.
Mm.
And so it's like, yeah, that's the big thing really for me with the whole GoPro thing. Yeah, we get great content, and and you do a good job of all that editing side and putting that all together. But yeah, like actually having it there for people to see and go, I want to go and do that. You could take like epic events, trail rides as an example, like all the footage that goes up from that stuff, and they go, oh, we've never been there. We want to go there because look how epic it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's something that I would say all of the riders would be on board with it if you were to ask them. But then I think, yeah, there really needs to be a big push for having that, because that can only help our sport to grow and bring potential sponsors and keep sponsors that are already currently supporting a lot of the riders like myself and Callum and a bunch of others, but give them some exposure too.
Mm.
Yeah, what do you gain the most from when we film together, Callum, we do GoPro stuff? Like what do you miss when you don't have it on?
Pretty much like, I don't know, you don't have something good to like post or whatever. Like you struggle to, like we don't have photographers to say at most of our rides, and like it's just hard to have something to put up that some people want to look at, if you know what I mean.
It's really hard, especially that somebody like you, Callum. You're often going and it's just your mates there at the event supporting you. You don't have anyone to film phone clips and that for you. And it's
No.
like you're in this position where you got these sponsors and you want to give them, exposure. How else
Mhm.
are you going to do it apart from running a helmet camera?
Mm. Yeah.
It, even the phone clips though, they're not like, it's not like on that high end resolution
No.
wise, so it still doesn't look that, it's still not that enticing. Like having actual photographers or films or GoPro where you got such high resolution, and then even like trying to film, say, a battle with me and Callum off a phone, you're only going to see a short bit because you can't
Mm,
be everywhere around the track. Whereas
no.
if you've got that on film, it's like you've got that going back forth. Like it's
Because
just such, it's so good to watch.
our battles weren't like even great at the pits either. They were all right, but
We were split for most of our pit stops, so it was like we were
yeah,
just, our battles were out where
yeah,
no one
I was
was.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So and you catch all those moments, like those close moments that are
Mm.
That
like,
one coming back into the pits, on just after you
oh
passed me.
yeah, also like
Oh,
there's lots of things that you would that you'd catch that you're not going to catch without a GoPro, like without an onboard camera.
hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that's something that definitely needs to change for sure.
Yeah, and like you say, if we get the right people on board with it, I don't think it's such a stretch to think that even next year we could have this resolved. It doesn't seem like a big deal, and if people are going to say that it's a FIM rule that they've got to, you know, apply, well, I'd just point them to the Motocross World Champs where they still run helmet cameras.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what seems so dumb. They run under FIM, but hang on, the FIM do that because there's money involved.
Mm,
Well, New Zealand, you're not going to get any money for people to wear GoPros because we're just not big enough for one. But it's like let the riders be able to have the opportunity to try and get better support and all that sort of thing, and then also not
promote the
not
event.
just promote their event, promote events, promote getting bums on seats and people on bikes and going to races.
Yeah, well
And
said. Yeah.
yeah,
All right, well, guys, thanks so much. That was wicked to relive that, and I'm gonna put in some clips to show sort of what we can without limited Paul Wibley photography. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, I think everybody will enjoy this nonetheless, and fingers crossed we'll return next year with a video like this where we can revisit every single moment from as you guys saw it.
There'll be some races in between then anyway that there'll be I'm sure we'll have some GoPros locked on, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
dead right, dead
good
right.
fun.
Well, yeah.
Sweet.
All right, thanks for joining me,
Awesome.
guys.
Cool team. Cheers.